Jay Ritchie. As usual, our guests are Nick Lucarelli and Cameron Watkins. Great to have you guys back as usual.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you guys. Now let's get to right into business with the MLB around the league. We're going to start off with the hot Brewers, 10-2 off the bat of Ryan Braun. What do you guys think about how he's come back after steroid abuse and they're really starting to play like a different team?
Oh, it's obviously early in the season in a sport like baseball, but as we talked about it last week, it's impressive from a mental standpoint that he's easy to sweep the stuff up under the rug and play so well. Let's see if they can sustain it.
Well, it's tough to come back from a suspension of that magnitude, but they appear to be playing some really great baseball. But do you think they'll be able to keep this run up?
Yeah, at this point, it really doesn't matter. It's still a lot of games left.
It's a long season.
Their pitching is a little young, but I think they'll be able to get a lot of wins. On the other side of the spectrum, 5-8, the Boston Red Sox, slow start. They also have Dustin Pedroia, Mike Napoli, and their closer Yorihama hurt for a couple weeks now. Now, do you think Boston can come back and as long as the season is, do you think they'll come back and win the division, or do you think it's going to take a real toll? They're going to get a slow start and never get back to where they should be?
I think they'll win the division. They'll come back again. We're going to keep stating because that's what you have to do with baseball. There is a lot of games left. I quite frankly can't see them doing much in terms of the playoffs this year, but I think they'll come back and they'll win the division. But if you're a Red Sox fan, is that enough? Do they have to come back like how good they were last year and get to that magnitude, or is making the playoffs enough for the ownership? Or if they just make the playoffs, are they going to have a complete overhaul of the roster? Try and get younger. That's really the question.
GM does do that. GM, he's a very young guy, Theo.
The AL East is a very competitive division. The Boston Red Sox, they are off to a slow start. The Blue Jays, they're playing some good baseball right now. Jose Reyes, I believe he's still on the DL. When you come back, do you think the Toronto Blue Jays, do you think they're going to be able to keep up their consistent play?
It's going to be really tough in the AL East. The Yankees are an aging team, very hurt, but they're at 500 right now. I expect them to be 500 by the end of the season. Same thing with all the other teams. Nobody's really standing up besides the Baltimore Orioles. They had a lot of young talent. Center Adam Jones is a very productive player. But over to the injuries, we got Josh Hamilton out till early June with a thumb injury. Curtis Granderson for the Mets, day-to-day with a wrist and ribs after going into the wall. Mark Teixeira is out till April 20th with a groin. Francisco Cervelli, another Yankee, out till mid-June with hamstring issues. All these injuries very early in the season, a lot of star names. And the 162-game season has come into question about being too long. Me, I'm a baseball purist. I'd rather see it always be that many games. But what do you think?
I think it's just, the games are long, the season's too long, everything's just too long when it comes to baseball, in my personal opinion. I understand the baseball purist. It's important to keep the history of the game because it is such an historic game. I understand that. But to me, it doesn't make any sense to not go to the 82-game system that the NBA and the NHL has.
Well, games like that, they say it should be 45.
Well, I think 82 is solid. I think 82 is a solid time. First of all, hockey is a much more physical sport than baseball. I know baseball, it's wear and tear. It is still a sport, a professional sport. But
you play every day.
You move it down to 82 games, you can spread it out a little bit more. And therefore, there probably will be less injuries, and it'll be easier to watch, quite frankly.
That is true. 162 games, and it is a compacted season. You have 3-game series, and sometimes those series, they're back-to-back-to-back in most cases. But shortening the MLB season would be a great idea, in my opinion. You could shorten it to maybe 2-game series. Each 3- and 4-game series, in my opinion, is way too much of a toll on these MLB players.
Well, let's be honest. It's never going to happen because it comes down to money. More games,
that's very true.
But if they were focused on making the game better, that's what they should do.
I also believe a way to make the game better, a way to make the game shorter is open up the strike zone to what it should be instead of belt to knee. It should be maybe
Mike Schmidt was talking about.
Yes, exactly. Mike Schmidt on a radio station on 94.1. Chest to knee is where the strike zone is. It's not belt to knee. And they get that wrong a lot. And it's like the only game where an umpire has to say, this is my strike zone. It's not the actual strike zone. And there's a lot of human error in it. But we'll get into that a different day. I would like to move on to Cole Hamels is coming back April 22nd, suggested. Who knows when he'll be back. He's got an arm problem. Ryan Zimmerman, of the third baseman for the Nationals, is mid-May. He'll be back with a thumb injury. Adrian Beltre, the slugger for the Texas Rangers, out indefinitely with a quad injury. Last thing I want to get with the MLB is a 10-home-run performance 2 days ago by the Reds and the Pirates. That rivalry is really starting to get hot, guys, and it's really early in the year. But who do you think? Do you think the Reds, they're slow start, but they're playing really hard against their rivals? Do you think it's a product of rivalry or product of team?
Well, in most sports, all sports, you see people rise to the occasion of the person they're playing. Whether it's Ravens, Steelers, those games will also be competitive. Yankees, Red Sox also in baseball. But yeah, this rivalry is coming out to be one of the best rivalries in baseball. I think it's got, I think the whole season, no matter where they are in the standings, they're going to get up for each other. And I think that personally, I think the Pirates are going to get the better of the series. I think they're going to, might even win the World Series this year. The batted Walker, and it's just.
Grilly at the closer.
Yeah,
they're really coming together as a perfect
the Reds
team.
starting off slow. I think they can get stuff up, but the Pittsburgh is the team really to watch between those two.
I have to agree with you. Pittsburgh, they're a really talented team. They proved that last season, with that really big turnaround. I believe Pittsburgh, they're the better team out of the Reds and the Pirates, in my opinion.
I agree. And now we're going to move on from the MLB. That was our MLB league overview. Now over to NHL playoffs, my most personal, exciting thing that's going to happen. Let's get right into the first series that me and my guest here have a very personal attachment to. The Philadelphia Flyers take on the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers are the higher seed. They will have home. Madison Square Garden will be hosting them tomorrow night at 7:30. Nick, what's your take on the whole series?
Well, I said, I believe it was on the first show, that whoever gets home ice is going to win the series. I don't think it's that simple anymore. I still think the Rangers will win the series, and that's who has home ice. But I think it comes down to more so what unit is going to step up. I think the great defense of the Rangers versus the great offense of the Flyers is going to cancel out. What it depends is who's going to step up. The Rangers, mediocre up and down offense, or the Flyers, mediocre up and down defense. I personally believe the Rangers offense is going to show up more than the Flyers defense. That's not bias, that's objectivity. But when it comes down to it, the players to watch in this series from both teams, you got the Flyers, it's Mark Streit, without a doubt. Him and McDonald are going to be probably the most surprised best unit on defensive in the entire league this year. And if they can shut down the Nash, Stefan, fast line as of right now, because Kreider's injured, I don't see how the Rangers can put up goals, and you need to put up goals to win. And from the Rangers aspect, to me, it's Derek Brassard, who's centering the Derek Brassard, Matt Zuccarello, and Benoit Pouliot line. If that line gets up and they start cohesive nature to the team, and the other first two lines that I mentioned, as well as the Richards, St. Louis, Haslam line, Rangers are going to be tough to beat.
I agree. St. Louis must come into his own. Steve Mason, the goalie for the Flyers, is going to be out for Game 1, so we're going to have Ray Emery in behind that. And Ryan McDonough is not 100% with a left shoulder injury, but he's not anywhere close to being 75. He's very in the middle. He's going to be an impact player. Cam, what do you take on the series?
I believe it's going to come down to the goaltender. Lundqvist, he's been playing really good. He's been playing really good in the net for the Rangers throughout the season. But I have to give it to the experience of Brad Richards and Martin St. Louis. They've been through a lot because they were together in Tampa Bay for a number of seasons. So I have to give it to the Rangers on this one.
They're starting to come together now.
Yeah.
It's not translating to goals necessarily by St. Louis, but he's got 10 assists, I think, in the last 15 games. And
he's playing good hockey, and that's really what comes down to. Me, I'm taking Philly in 7 because that's what I'm going to go with.
Of course.
Player to watch, I'm saying the Flyers forwards who aren't Claude Giroux. So Vinny LeCavalier, Wayne Simmons, Braden Shen are really who, if somebody steps up, they're all 20-goal scorers. One of them steps up, Giroux might not have to carry the team on his back. For New York, it's Ryan McDonough of his shoulder. He should be fine, but if Wayne Simmons, with their rivalry of fighting, if Simmons goes after him and puts him out, Rangers are going to have a tough time replacing him on defense because he is their best defenseman I've ever seen. Now moving on to St. Louis and LeCavalier's old team, Tampa Bay versus Montreal. Tampa Bay has Ryan Callahan, the ex-Ranger, as their star player he's coming out of, and he's playing really well. Who takes the series, and for what reasons?
I think Tampa Bay takes it in 5 games, and I think the reason is Ryan Callahan. No, obviously not just Ryan Callahan, but these are guys that bring him over the hump. Stamkos is playing well. Bishop's out Game 1. But Lindback, he's been a solid backup. I don't see him going to be a big hole in the gaping hole in the entire team. I think Callahan brings up that second line, brings some more cohesive nature to the whole game. And I think that Montreal just doesn't have the offensive weapons. I know they got Pacioretty, but I just don't think they have the offensive weapons down each line that he combat with the defense of Tampa Bay. That is an underrated unit, man. You're not really reeling off names, but they play good hockey. So I think Tampa Bay takes it in 5. One of the more dominant wins of the entire NHL playoff season.
I agree.
Do you think, in my opinion, do you think Tampa Bay, do you think they'll be playing lackadaisical hockey in the playoffs?
That is a good question. Yeah.
Their coach, they're a very up and down team, and without Stamkos performing as the highest level, they really don't do much. But with Ben, my problem with Tampa Bay is Ben Bishop's hurt, and if Anders Lindback doesn't step up, and you have to go against Carey Price of Montreal, those are my impact players. Carey Price is one of the best goalies, led Canada to a gold medal this year. And it's going to be a very hard time for Tampa Bay to even get by him if Stamkos doesn't perform.
Exactly.
Now moving on to my upset, Pittsburgh and Columbus Blue Jackets. Pittsburgh finally gets healthy with, again, Evgeny Malkin back. Letang comes back from his stroke that he suffered a while ago. And their last 10 games, 5-3-2, so they're all right. Columbus, on the other hand, has Brandon Dubinsky from the Rangers, who played a hot year. He's a tremendous goal scorer. Do you believe that what I think? Columbus takes this game if it takes the series, if it gets out of hand?
Well,
Pittsburgh is not, they might be healthy, but the chemistry, they haven't played together in a while.
Well, I think on any given night, you got so many talented players on Pittsburgh. They can take any game against any team. But I think when it comes to a 7-game series, I think Pittsburgh takes it in 7. But again, I said 7. Columbus could easily win this matchup. I think it's the best chance one of our teams, Flyers and Rangers, have moving on if we can catch a Columbus after we defeat each other. So I think I can't see it happen only because I don't think Bobrovsky is as good as everybody thinks he is. I think Fleury steps up, and I think that is the difference. I think Fleury steps up.
He had a bad game against Philly, but he always has bad games against Philly.
Yeah,
so that's maybe, yeah.
I think it comes down to goaltending like most matchups do in hockey. I think Fleury beats out Bobrovsky, so I think Pittsburgh takes it in 7.
Pittsburgh, they've had a really great season. I have to give it to Pittsburgh in 6. The only question I have to throw out there, you think Sidney Crosby, he'll be able to stay healthy throughout the series?
With how Columbus, the size of Columbus, I don't. They're big, but I don't think they're not fast enough to come. They are fast, or Umberger, Dubinsky, but they're not they're not the team that Pittsburgh is. I'm saying my problem is Letang coming back. If Letang doesn't perform like the defenseman he was, then I don't think they can win. Because Brooks Orpik is also hurt. But what?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just sorry to interrupt you, but
No, go ahead.
Dubinsky said, I believe yesterday on NHL Network, that Sidney Crosby will not be a factor. And Columbus has been really, this is only their second playoff appearance in franchise history, but they're talking some smack.
Plus, you got some Rangers players who know Crosby very well.
From the Metropolitan Division.
Now, moving over to another interesting series, Boston versus Detroit. Detroit has made the playoffs in the past 20 years plus. And now Boston coming really hot, but who knows what can happen with Detroit. I have Detroit winning 7 because I love to see that. And as long as I believe it, I think it's going to happen. Detroit, if Jimmy Howard can step up against Boston with that defense, have the defensive mind at play, if they can stop goals, I think with Detroit's power forwards, Pavel Datsyuk, Henrik Zetterberg, the Mule with, give me his name, please.
Cromwell?
No, the Mule.
Who was the Mule? I'm not as familiar with that connotation.
We're going to go with Nicholas Holmstrom. Fine. Boston, I have McGinley because he's a very old player, underrated at his age, but he can still get in there and score a ton of goals. Best player, rated the best player of March. What do you guys think? Who takes the series?
I think, unfortunately, Boston takes it in 6. I think they're winning the East, unfortunately. I think it comes down to the top centers on each team, the Krejci versus Datsyuk. I think Krejci wins the matchup. I think it's going to be a matter of, getting into their forwards. I think both forwards on each team are very talented. It comes down to the center play of the two teams. I think Howard and Rask are going to cancel each other out. I think it's Krejci, Datsyuk. Krejci takes it. Boston wins in 6.
I agree. I also had Boston coming out the East. I'll take Boston in 6 as well.
All right, moving on to the West. San Jose versus LA Kings, a California matchup that a lot of people would love to see. LA playing really hot, even though the record doesn't say it. They're very good, but San Jose is better. Pavelski, Joe Thornton, guys of that nature. Patrick Marleau, very underrated left winger from Canada. Great stuff. My picks are Joe Thornton for San Jose. If he can lead this team, I think they can take it. It's going to be very hard for LA to do that. But if LA, Jonathan Quick, their goalie, plays anywhere near his capability, I think LA takes it in 6.
I think LA takes it in 5. I think it's going to be one of the more surprising matchups. Obviously, I don't think anybody's saying it's outright one way or the other, but I don't think many people are thinking Kings in 5. But just because San Jose's got so much talent, as you mentioned, Pavelski and Thornton, Marleau, Burns, man, they're loaded with talent. Still got Boyle, who's still playing good D. So, but, I just think, because I think the X factors are Gabrick and Pavelski. I think Gabrick steps up, and that 09 Flyers line really gets some more heat coming up from behind them.
I miss them too.
Yeah, so I think Richards, Carter, Gabrick, I think they got themselves a nice little matchup there with San Jose.
Great steal by the LA Kings with Marion Gabrick. Great player. He's been just tossed around like he's been nothing, but he's one of the best in the league.
He's not a great player.
Anaheim and Dallas. Anaheim, Dallas, another interesting. I'm taking Dallas in 7 because I think Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin are playing to the highest of their abilities. 63 combined goals. It is unmatched with the two pair. Malkin and Crosby have done it before, but these guys out west are really putting it up there. I think that Frederik Andersen, the rookie goaltender for Anaheim, is going to have to play game 1. That is going to be a big problem. And Jamie Benn's Dallas. Jamie Benn can lead them. They take it.
I agree 100%. Dallas in 7. I think it comes down to the speed of Seguin alone is just too much for Anaheim. They're too old. I don't see Getzlaf leading this team to another win in the playoffs. I think Dallas takes it in 7.
I agree. Dallas is a really fast-paced team. Honestly, Anaheim, they're not going to be able to keep up with that, with those young legs of Dallas.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Anaheim, if this goes to a 7-game series, Anaheim, they're going to be way too fatigued to keep up with Dallas when it comes to Game 7.
I think that's a great point because they've been fighting for the presidents, man. Them in St. Louis, along with Boston in the East, they've been fighting to win every game.
Moving on to St. Louis, who I almost have a lot. I have a lot of the lower seeds winning just because of how they're playing now. I have St. Louis getting beat by Chicago. For the fact that Ryan Miller's not playing to the capability, Backus is slow, he's injured, everyone's kind of hurt in some sort of way, and you can't rely on a partially injured team to beat him. Jonathan Tape's coming back from Chicago, he's hurt, but Kane and Sharp are going to play tremendous. So if Taves can pick up a little bit of the slack, I say Chicago in 6.
Taves might be the best two-way player in hockey if you really look at it, and I think that he will be healthy. I think Chicago will give him a run, but I think the Blues pick it up. I think because it's the playoffs and because they clinched so early, I think that had to do with their 6-game losing streak coming in the playoffs. Ken
Hitchcock can't win in the playoffs. He never could, and he never can.
I think this time he does. Statements like that were meant to be proven wrong. I think he does it in this series. Quite frankly, in the West, I don't think they're the team to beat, but I think they win this series in 7.
7?
I'll give it to the Blues as well in 7.
I'm taking Chicago, and that's why they're analysts, and I'm a host. Now over to the last series, Colorado versus Minnesota. Minnesota Wild has Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, 2 big American stars. But they also they're going to have to go against rookie forward Nathan McKinnon, he's had the best rookie season I've seen in a while. He's an 18-year-old. And Minnesota has to put Ilya Bryzgalov in net because of their hurt Nicholas Backstrom. What do you take of this series? I have Colorado in 5 because of how fast, how young, with Varlamov behind goal and Patrick Waugh as your coach. I don't see you really suffering in any place in the game.
I have the opposite end. I have Minnesota in 5.
Yeah?
Despite Bryzgalov.
All these problems with Bryzgalov, the team, the hurtness.
I think those top lines of Koivu, Pominville, and Parise, I don't see how they can be beat. I don't buy into the hype of Colorado, quite frankly. I don't think McKinnon can keep up his play. I don't know if there's really rookie wall in hockey, but I think he's going to hit it. And Varlamov, overrated goalie, and Patrick Waugh, he's getting taught by
Varlamov is getting taught by Patrick Waugh. You understand the best goalie in the game is teaching someone who was very good in Washington.
Sammy Ball couldn't learn how to teach quarterbacks. It doesn't work that way. I think Patrick Waugh's a great
It can
goalie,
work that way if
obviously.
you're a good teacher.
Well,
he's
see.
very.
Well, we're going to see what happens. I think Colorado goes down.
What do you think, Cam?
Well, Patrick Waugh, he's done a really great job with this Colorado Avalanche team. Like, they weren't playing really cohesive hockey in the beginning of the season, but they've picked up their play and they're playing really great hockey. But I give it to the Wild in 6.
I think Colorado's a hot team.
See?
But now we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to get back with our NBA playoffs and our guest analyst, Anthony Willis. Stay with us.
Thanks for calling the GED Pep Talk Center. Jerry Siller speaking. Your level 7 in-your-face pep talk.
I can keep pushing. Believe me, I'm good at it.
Once you've got your GED diploma, you'll feel so good about yourself.
You tell him.
Mr. Trejo, can I transfer this guy to you? He needs something a little more
Persuasive.
yes.
Whatever motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Get your GED pep talk and find free classes at yourged.org.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers to help us better care for ourselves and the ones we love.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital. I feel like a fish with no water.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. Here's how to prevent them. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor. Because even one attack is one too many.
Welcome back to MCTV Extra Point. I'm your host, CJ Ritchie. Now we're welcomed with our guest, Anthony Willis. How you doing, man?
Good.
Good to be with us?
Yes. It feels great to be back.
Great to be here with you, too. Now let's begin the NBA playoffs. If today we started We start off with the 1 seed of the East, the Indianapolis Pacers, versus the 8th seed Atlanta Hawks. What do you guys think about that series?
I think it's an upset special. I think Atlanta's got a chance to take it, but I think Indiana. I think they're going to turn it up. I don't. Hibbert's had an issue with Turner and the team. The unity, the solidarity of the team has been in question. But I think they turn it up for the playoffs. They see a goal. I think they're going to win the series. I think they have a very good shot to win the East. Although I think the Hawks are going to have a chance to upset them.
The season started. The Indiana Pacers, they were off to a rip-roaring start, but now they're playing some lackadaisical, lazy basketball.
Is that because they're already in, or why is that? Or is it because their play is off? What do you think?
Roy Hibbert, he's been playing some lazy basketball as well as the whole team. I believe he has 2 points in the last 3 games, if I'm mistaken. But as a team, you have to look at the Pacers. They're a great team. Paul George, he's came on the past couple of seasons, and he's playing really great basketball.
I've seen him. Yeah, he's doing good. But I've seen him be a little streaky in the late.
Yeah, he's streaky, but
he's very brilliant when he's good. Anthony?
If you would have asked me this at the beginning of the season, of course, Indiana definitely probably in a sweep, but they've, like everyone's been saying, they've been playing some lazy basketball, and it's a shame with all the talent, especially with Roy Hibbert. He could be the best center in the league with his size and his skill set, but what was it, the last time he had 0 rebounds, the last time the Pacers and the Heat, that could be further down the line in the playoffs, played. And I know he caught a lot of heat for that. And the Hawks actually blew Indiana out the last time they played. Yeah. So it might go to 7 games. Indiana might, squeak it out 4-3, but it's definitely not going to be easy at all.
It's going to be a close series, definitely. And continuity here, it's Indiana, not Indianapolis. I'm an idiot. Moving on. Brooklyn, Chicago, probably a very interesting series. 4 and 5 is the seeding if they happen today. Chicago with Shaquem Noah becoming one of the best players I've ever seen as a center right now. And Brooklyn with the all-star cast, the old players with Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, playing their roles, not really playing the all-stars. Nick, what do you think of the series?
I think Brooklyn, or the 08 Celtics, I think they take this series. I think Chicago's playing good basketball, but I think it's going to come down to, I think Brooklyn, I think they're believing their own hype, and not in a bad way. I think it's their time. I think they're going to be the team to watch in the East to throw in Indiana or Miami. I think they win the series in 6.
These two teams, they met last year in the playoffs, if you can remember. I believe that series went to 7 games as well. I'm looking for this series to go to 7 games. Chicago, they keep playing without Derrick Rose, and they keep winning without Derrick Rose. Just imagine if Derrick Rose was here with them.
It makes you believe Carmelo would love to go there, because they can actually win a couple games, unlike the Knicks, and they fall apart.
But cheap shot.
Anthony?
I would take Brooklyn in this series. Jason Kidd has done a great job in turning that team around, because if you remember at the beginning of the season, they got off to a terrible start, and everyone was riding them off already. Garnett, Paul Pierce are too old. Why did they go out and basically, like Nick said, get the 08 Celtics
I feel like
on their
Kidd's
team?
about to put on a pair of shorts and start playing again. I feel very well. He wants to get out there. He's jealous about those. He's younger than half 2 of them. He wants to play.
Yeah. He very well could. And then on the Chicago Bulls side, like he said, they've done a really good job without Derrick Rose. So both of these teams have overcome a lot, to get to this point. But I think the road ends for Chicago, 6, 7 games. Brooklyn will take the last game.
It's unfortunate they're playing each other. You really like to see both these teams.
Because they're middle of the pack. Cam, what was your prediction?
I'm gonna have to take Brooklyn in 7.
Brooklyn in 7.
I'm gonna take Brooklyn.
Who's your X factor?
Mason Plumlee.
Interesting.
Mason Plumlee.
All right, now moving on. Miami versus Charlotte. Miami not playing the hottest ball, but it's LeBron James. I don't really know if we can say anything about it, but here, let me hear it. Anything about the team?
It's obviously tough to play the if game because we don't know what's going to happen yet. But I believe, it's speculation, they're going to turn it on, like we talked about the other teams turning it on. And when they want to win, we talked about this before the show, when they want to win, they're going to win. And I don't see how anybody can outplay them one-on-one in basketball. Just LeBron James, I don't see how they can lose.
Look for Charlotte to win maybe 1 game out of this series. They've done a great job. mind you, they won only 7 games a couple of seasons ago, and they've turned it around this year. I believe they won 43 games this season. They're only going to win maybe 1 game this series, but look for Charlotte to be put on the map next season.
Michael Jordan's team finally starting to play like a team. All right, Anthony?
Miami comes out in this series and they play like they did last year in the playoffs, where they would, they could have won a lot of those series easily if they would have just played consistently throughout the playoffs. But they let the teams that they very well could have beaten in 4 games, they let them, steal a game or 2 on their home court. So maybe Charlotte could take one at home, but I think the Heat most likely sweep this series.
I'd love to see it, but
nothing would make me happier than have the decision him losing. But over to the West, another great series you guys point out to me: Los Angeles Clippers versus the Golden State Warriors. Stephen Curry really coming into his own as a great college player, now a great pro player, and the LA Clippers with what's his name? Chris Paul, Blake Griffin. I always forget these guys. I see them every day on television. But what do you guys think about that series? It's going to be a really good another California series. It's really so many teams you really can't when the playoffs start. Can't miss it.
A lot of analysts are saying this is the matchup to watch in the West. I would agree. I think this one goes to 7. I think it comes down to home court, and I think obviously the Clippers take it because they have home court. CB3, Griffin. I don't even think it's about that. I think it's about the team playing well, the coaching. I think they're taking in 7.
It's going to come down to home court. It's really going to come down to home court. The Clippers, they're going to have to win games on the road to get this series off, in my opinion. But I look at the Warriors, and I look how far they've come over the past couple of seasons. I really like the Warriors roster. Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson. They're playing without David Lee right now.
Andre Iguodala.
Yeah, Andre Iguodala, Harrison Barnes. This is a really great team. I like the Golden State Warriors in this series.
I agree with you. Anthony?
Okay. I like the Clippers in this series. Clippers do have an outside chance at the 2nd seed. A couple things go their way on, I think the game's tonight, Wednesday. So they might. Yeah. They might, but even if the matchup does come down to them in Golden State, they do have to take care of business on the road, obviously. I can see them, there's a lot of long series that we're talking about. This is another one that I can see going 6 or 7 games, and if it goes to that 7th game, then, the home court team usually prevails in Game 7. So I can see the Clippers taking it in 7.
If, as you said, if LA goes the number 2 seed, do you believe that it will be easier for LA Clippers to play Dallas, and do you think it would be easier for OKC to play Golden State, or do you think I think Golden State's got a better shot against OKC, just because of how if you take out one of their main stars, then they really kind of like they're scrambling to find the points. When it works better than any team I've ever seen. But if you can stop Russell Westbrook, Durant's got to put everything on his back. He's got to do all the defense. He's got to do all the work. Ibaka's got to play his heart out, and it's just really hard. I really think Dallas would maybe not benefit, but Golden State would if the thing switched. But let's get into that series: OKC versus Dallas.
Definitely. If Kevin Durant had the killer instinct that Russell Westbrook has, they talk about it all the time. Kevin Durant just doesn't have that attitude that Westbrook has. If he had it, then he would definitely be able to take this team on his back when Russell Westbrook or Ibaka were to go down. But I think OKC should end up in contention for the Western Conference Finals. So in saying that, I obviously have them beating Dallas in this series.
All right, yeah.
I'm a really big Kevin Durant fan.
Really?
I'm a big Kevin Durant fan. I'm going with my boys. We swept the Dallas Mavericks. I believe not last season. 2 seasons ago. Russell Westbrook goes down. KD was able to put this team on his back for those 25 games, and he carried them. Yeah. He willed them to victory. I feel like if he was able to have that assassin's mentality, like Anthony mentioned, if he had that assassin's mentality like LeBron and Jordan had, he would be able to just demolish his he'll be able to demolish his opponents just every single night, just take them out one by one. It would be easy for him.
It'd be very lethal. Nick?
Yeah, you mentioned it when you talked about would it be beneficial for who to play OKC. You mentioned how if you take away those two players, you got yourself a good chance of victory. But that, to me, that's a big if, taking away those two players. And
I'm not saying take them out.
Yeah.
I'm saying not have the game that they're accustomed to having.
Yeah, to me, I think that I know what you're saying. To me, I think that again, another big if that I think that they're both off on the same night. I think one of them's going to be on. And I think it's hard to measure a man in the sense of his heart and his desire when it comes down to a guy like Kevin Durant. I don't see the lack of assassin mentality that people mention a lot. I think he's got assassin mentality. I think he wants to win. And to me, I think OKC takes it relatively handily. Amount of games, I think 6. But that's just because they're playing a pretty good team too that's on the rise. But I think OKC takes it, and it's because of Kevin Durant.
All right, San Antonio, the #1 seed, will be taking on Memphis quite likely. I'm not going to get into it. Greg Popovich, Tim Duncan, that's all that needs to be said. Moving on, Toronto versus Washington in the East, 3 and 6 seed Toronto. Washington a 6. Washington with their prize pick. Prize pick from Washington. Who's there? Do you think Washington can win? Because I haven't seen them play ball at all this year.
I think Washington will win. Let's leave it at that.
At Toronto?
Yes.
I'm picking Washington.
Washington?
I like John Wall and Bradley Beal.
That's it.
John Wall. Yep.
John Wall. For you, Ant?
I'm gonna go with the season series. I know that's not always a predication of what's gonna happen in the playoffs, but Toronto did take the season series 3-1. I think that holds some weight, and I know the Raptors aren't an annual playoff team, but Washington is just making the playoffs for the first time in about a couple seasons. So they got a 5 or 6 seasons. They got a young team, so playoff experience does really help.
Both of those teams, John Wall's star-studded, but not the most. The rest of the team isn't. Toronto not really star-studded, not big names, but they're playing great basketball, and that's what I guess. Yeah, San Antonio has shown you got to be fundamentally sound, or you're never going to win as much as you can. And then the last series I like it because I'm a big fan of Portland. They're taking on the Houston Rockets maybe, and Portland will be 5, Houston will be 4. Who are you taking that series?
I think if it stays like that, I think Houston takes it again. Home court is going to be a big deal. You guys like Harden. I just think Houston takes it because of home court. I think it's going to be a big deal, especially because I think it's going to 7. And the most important thing for home court is when you go to 7 games. That's when it matters the most, and that's why I think they take it.
This is going to be a really tough series. This is going to be a grinded-out series, in my opinion. You have 2 of the best big men in the league, LaMarcus Aldridge and Dwight Howard, going at it the whole series. It's a tough pick, in my opinion. It's really a tough pick, but I'm going to take the Houston Rockets in 7.
Yeah.
All right, you got your 2 big guys, your 2 big players on Portland, and Lillard and Aldridge going up against, Harden and of course Howard. But I think the X factor in this series could possibly be Jeremy Lin, the point guard for the Houston Rockets. But even if it doesn't come down to an X factor, I don't think Portland has that much, especially since they don't have home court advantage in this series. I think Houston is, the overall better team, and I can see Houston taking this probably in five games, 5 or 6. 6 is the most I'd go.
Portland did fizzle out towards, they were pretty hot at one time. They were really big in the West, but they did die down.
Playoffs are all new season now.
Yeah, it's going to be. I would love to see Portland win. I love LaMarcus Aldridge, one of my favorites. Now, come back with us. We're going to talk about Mount Rushmore of NFL quarterbacks and running backs. Stay tuned, please.
I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're gonna beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen.
petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Welcome back to MCTV Extra Point. Now we're going to talk about a little of the NFL. The headlines real quick, what's going on around the league. Chris Johnson just got signed for 2 years by the Jets. And Josh Freeman, the old Tampa Bay quarterback, just got signed for a backup deal 1 year with the New York Football Giants. And other bad news, troubling stuff coming out of San Francisco. Alden Smith has gotten charged with bomb threats. Bomb threats. He's been in a lot of trouble before with the marijuana. Let's not get into that. I have different supporting on those things, but he's been in a lot of trouble with the league. What is this? I don't know what to make of this.
For a guy who's a one-threat player, if he's a pure pass rusher, can't play the pass, and he has trouble playing the run, I don't think he's worth this kind of trouble. I don't know who he thinks he is. Keeps getting in trouble. To yell bomb on an airplane, it's
airport security, not on an airplane.
Okay, fine.
Didn't make it that far yet.
To yell bomb to a he didn't make it that far. It's just, I don't see. You can only laugh because it's so unbelievable. But I'm not even sure what else to say besides wow.
I don't even think it's serious. He's just a joke at this point. But go ahead, Cam.
But the thing that amuses me is that you have all this damn talent, and you're just putting it to waste over silly stuff like this. I mean,
it's like when my car doesn't start in the morning, I freak out. He's got money out. He's got money coming out of his ears, and he can't just relax when he's got a plane.
Yeah.
The guy's got hanger problems. I don't know what else. Maybe he should be doing marijuana. Maybe he should be smoking marijuana.
In my opinion, it just doesn't make any sense.
He's just too. What do you think, Ant?
There's just some people that you just wonder when it's gonna click for them, like when the little light is gonna come on in their head. And I just feel like it's never gonna come on for Alden Smith. And then just recently they said a pre-draft psych report said, basically said, watch out for this guy. There's some potential for some off the field trouble, and he has 3 felony counts of legal possession of an assault weapon and a DUI.
And he's an NFL player, and that's why he ain't in jail yet. And it's amazing with all that money, you don't change your mind. Another even more troubling story, Darren Sharper this is actually not funny. He's got rape allegations in several states, several allegations. What do you guys make of Darren?
Well, this is a little bit of a different situation, obviously, especially if he is actually guilty. I'm not exactly sure what his pleas are, the exact specifics.
And you can't crucify a man who's not been proven guilty.
Yeah, but as a big fan of Darren Sharper, love the way he played. So durable, such a good safety, one of the best safeties of all time in my mind. Previous to this, or still, if you're going isolated from his off-field issues, his on the field was a first ballot Hall of Famer, and it's troubling to me. Would
that affect his Hall of Fame candidacy?
It shouldn't, in terms of.
But it will.
It probably will.
But it will.
And you really can't blame people for having some bad thoughts of him in his mind.
Is OJ in the Hall?
Yes, he is.
Well, I think we can.
Well, that was also before he was in the Hall. As soon as first year of eligibility, which was in the 70s, so it was before anything happened. But yeah, it's we might see the first person in the NFL get his name smirched because of this type of thing and not get into the Hall of Fame, who clearly deserves it.
Cameron?
Darren Sharper, he was a hell of a player.
He got the Saints the Super Bowl, right?
He wielded the Saints defense to the Super Bowl
9 interceptions
single-handedly. Yeah. But off the field, after you retire, just to have these rape allegations come out, I just think it's just downright sad.
Could pull Kobe and just turn it on its ear. Win.
It's just sad.
Not funny.
It's just sad to hear this about him. I just hope they find him innocent, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'd be like a nice burden off everyone's shoulders to this player.
It's tough though because
a lot of people look up to Darren Sharper.
You're a stand-up guy in the league, what do you think, Anthony?
Just looking at him, his NFL career, and then looking at him on, doing the broadcast for NFL Network, you would have never thought, in a million years that he, would be potentially a serial raper. And just when you're an athlete, and we're of course not stupid. They have women coming to them from everywhere. If he's really guilty of these rapes, it just he has something wrong in his head.
A lot of players, Maurice Clarett never really made it, and it was because of his psyche. It's because he couldn't keep himself off the field. Marcus Vick had a little bit of he had a little bit of promise, but he got in a lot of trouble, and he shoots his mouth off, and
Ben
people.
Roethlisberger, you know,
But yeah, some of them make it, like shout out to Cinco, Ben Roethlisberger. Some of them stand the test of time, and some of them don't, and it's a shame. But let's move on to a better topic, more lively topic, something we can all talk about: Mount Rushmore of NFL quarterbacks.
Oh, right.
No order, top 4. Who's going up on the wall?
You know, I think it's important to remember that it's not just about the best numbers, who you think the best quarterback was, one drive, one game. It's about who changed the game as well as their accomplishment.
Well, it's not the best 4 presidents. It's what the best 4 presidents. It's what the 4 presidents did.
It's what they mean to the game, and I think my top 4 in no particular order, but in sort of an order. I think you got to start off with Johnny Unitas. The guy has 3 NFL championships and 1 Super Bowl championship, which occurred when he was 40 years old in 1970. You know, the guy invented the 2-minute offense, basically thus inventing the game the way it is today. He was throwing for 3,500 yards, and the guy second to him was throwing for 1,800 yards. He made, if this is a passing league, he made it so. And,
And it still wasn't really a passing league when he was doing it.
Not
Even
at all.
Even for years afterward, it's still like Namath was really what kind of got it.
But he got there, and it's just without Lenny Moore and Raymond Berry, he really had nobody else around him. And the guy really just perfected his offensive game plan. It's just people feared him, and he was such an upstanding guy, represented the game the right way. To me, you had to put him on as your first quarterback. My second quarterback is a guy named Otto Graham. Played for the Browns in the 40s and 50s, and to me, the guy went to 10 straight NFL championships and won 7 of them. I don't see, if we measure quarterbacks, you measure players by if they win. The guy has 7 championships, went to 10 straight, and he threw for.
And what does he mean to players?
What he means to players is that in 1952 he threw for 2,816 yards. The second guy below him threw for 16,044 yards.
Unheard of.
So kind of countering my point of Johnny Unitas. If you just look at the way he was throwing back then, the guy was also very mobile. He put the Browns. We look at the Browns as a laughingstock now, but they had such history because of him, because of what he did in the 40s and 50s.
Another player we'll get to very soon.
He was the staple of the NFL when he was playing, and to me, that means a lot to the game. My next quarterback is Joe Montana. I think I think all of us will have him on here, probably, on the Mount Rushmore. 4 Super Bowl championships, man. The guy was just, Joe Cool. They called him that for a reason. Under pressure, he was the best. And, people look at the Bengals ending drive as one of his signature moments. Going to the catch game as one of his signature moments. The guy's got an endless amount of signature moments. It's one of the reasons why he's on here. And meaning to the game, I wouldn't say he didn't exactly change the game. He just did it. He did it pretty well. He did it pretty well. So, I think you got to have him on there with the 4 championships and, the way he ran the Bill Walsh offense. Now, my fourth guy is Tom Brady. You guys got 3 Super Bowl championships, and it's more so the eye test. It's hard to support him because in this decade he's got incredible numbers. But so do guys like Peyton Manning, even guys like Matthew Stafford have great numbers like that.
No, he's never going to be. Matt Stafford won't be mentioned.
Yeah. So
that's why the problem with is the winning to the numbers. It's got to be in relation to the area you're from.
To me, it's the eye test of just the guy is the most accurate quarterback. I don't care what the completion percentage is. The guy hits his receivers. He can win with anybody. His 3 championships came when his best receiver was either Deion Branch or David Patton. And he's got talk about a will to win. And something that all these guys have in common, except for Otto Graham taking in the first round. Johnny Unitas, 9th round. Joe Montana, 3rd round. Tom Brady, 6th round. I mean, they're also proof that you don't have to be a first-round prospect other than Otto Graham. And I think that, Brady is the poster boy for draft bust of not drafting somebody.
Draft sleepers.
Yeah. So, it's he's got to be the 4th guy, in my opinion, of quarterbacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks, just like you had first, Johnny Unitas. He revolutionized the quarterback position in an era that wasn't doing a lot of passing. He revolutionized that position. 10-time Pro Bowl selection, 5-time first-team All-Pro, 4-time NFL MVP. Finished his career with over 40,000 passing yards. Man, he's a great quarterback. They called him the Golden Arm for good reasons. My second man on the list, Joe Montana. Also for good reasons. 8-time Pro Bowl selection, 4-time Super Bowl champion, all of them, with Bill Walsh and Jerry Rice. That great 49ers team they had together all those years in the 80s. He also finished his career with over 40,000 passing yards, as well as a career quarterback rating of 92.3. Third guy on the list, Dan Marino. 9-time Pro Bowl selection.
You got.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick, if you're not even gonna let him talk without giving a face, please explain why.
Please continue. Please continue.
Give the man a forum.
Go ahead, my man.
I like Dan Marino though. You have to put him on the list though. 61,000 passing yards, 420 passing touchdowns. He had the most passing touchdowns in a season for a while until Peyton Manning and Tom Brady broke that record.
He had a lot of 2-yard touchdowns.
Yeah, he
did. Which is the only reason why.
The most of all time.
Well, okay, the most of all. He's got 5 yards and he's got very short. But I mean, he got down there. I mean, you had Larry Sonka take it. Yeah, he wasn't there, but you got people taking him down there. And it's you bring in Marino, you bring in Young, you bring in Aikman. I feel like they're all in the same class of. Aikman won more, Marino was better, Young was kind of in between, but they're not odds over better than.
Not one more. They won. He didn't. It's simple. You can't put a guy.
But I don't see Aikman
never won a championship.
I mean, come on. He's not. He's still. I mean, even though he's not a winner, but still, he was a great quarterback. You have to consider that he's still a good quarterback.
I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback. I'm saying on the Mount Rushmore.
If we were doing this a couple years ago, he would definitely be on it. But now, since Peyton Manning and Brett Favre, Brett Favre's case shattering his yards, his touchdowns, completions. And then you go to the Super Bowls after that, he doesn't have any. So it's kind of like
he went to a Super Bowl in the second year, right?
Yeah.
If you look at it like that, that means that he went then 15 years without doing much in the playoffs. Made one AFC championship after that. I mean, the guy. It wasn't an Elway situation where he was the entire team and he got less credit in some aspects and more credit in other aspects.
He wasn't the entire team when they won with Elway.
No,
he was carried, but he was a decrepit
I'm talking about the early years.
He had talent around him.
Marino had talent around the Dupers of the world. He had some talent.
The thing. You put Elway on there, and you put Marino. It's a three-man spot. You put Young, Marino, Elway all in the same. They're the same thing.
Elway's got 2 championships. They're not the same.
Young has 1.
Do you think John Elway would have got those championships if it wasn't for Terrell Davis?
No, clearly not. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking. Well, first of all, Elway. That's my point. When Elway wasn't winning championships, and that was the knock on him, and we'll get to this when you continue your list, guys. He was the entire team. When he wasn't winning championships.
5 AFC
when Dan Marino was not winning championships, he wasn't the entire team. He had help around him, and he still couldn't do anything. And he also didn't go to 5 championships like John Elway did. He went to 1.
3 before Terrell Davis. Yeah.
And it was a weak AFC that year. They beat the Jets in the AFC Championship, who were a decent team at best. It was a weak year, and he couldn't even get back to the AFC Championship 15 years later. The guy's not a winner. I respect your opinion. He was a very talented quarterback. To me, he's a very good quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback. But Mount Rushmore, I don't see it. But continue with your
list.
Finish
before Nick has an aneurysm.
I put him on my list because of his numbers still. Okay. That's why I put him on my list, even though he's not a winner.
And you have that right. God bless America.
But my fourth person, I was torn between Otto Graham and Tom Brady, but I put Tom Brady on there because he was a winner, simply put.
Can't argue with that. Anthony?
Okay, mine is in no particular order. As with everybody else, Joe Montana led the team of the 80s decade, 4 Super Bowl rings. Joe Cool, I mean, everybody knows Joe Montana's story by now. John Elway, who we just had a nice debate about. A 9-time Pro Bowler, 5-time AFC champ, like we said. He obviously had the 2 when they won the 2 Super Bowls, but to show that he has been a winner, I mean, he has been to, what would that make, 5 Super Bowls. Yeah. I mean, he's 2 and 3 in them, but he's been getting there, and at least he was able to go out on a very high note and, win back-to-back Super Bowls. I have Johnny Unitas on my list also. 10-time Pro Bowler, 3 NFL championships before it was known as the Super Bowl, obviously. Super Bowl champion of Super Bowl 5, obviously, and 4-time NFL MVP, 6-2 playoff record. So I think that should, be noted. Johnny Unitas definitely, was a great passer in the era that really didn't emphasize passing as we talked about.
He's really lost.
Really lost.
Should not be.
It's hard for young kids to emulate someone who you see grainy, black and white, and it's hard. But if they were given the chance to see him, everybody would understand what he did to the game.
I mean, Johnny Unitas, revolutionized the quarterback position.
Yeah.
And
Like,
nobody knows except for quarterbacks and people who love sports. And that's the problem.
Who's your fourth?
Yeah, who's your fourth?
My last one, I kind of waffled a little bit. If we were talking about, not just talking about the NFL, but if we were talking about overall football, professional football, I would have actually put Warren Moon on the NFL Mount Rushmore because not only did he excel in the CFL, winning, I think it was three Grey Cups or something of that nature, but he made the seamless transition to the NFL and put up great numbers in the NFL. And of course, not to make it about this, but he also meant a lot for African American quarterbacks, as did Doug Williams back when he won the Super Bowl, and was the first. We had Russell Wilson just win and making him the second, but Warren Moon definitely did a lot, for in that aspect of the game
all
too.
the guys that followed
has an impact on the
anybody
game.
that followed, like Cunningham, emulated Moon.
But
anybody that comes after him.
Well, to me, it's definitely a factor because you're talking about what meant to the game. But to me, I put him in the Marino class of a guy that couldn't win anything.
Yeah,
the guy was a great quarterback, but
he got
I
surrounded
put
by
him
a
on
team
there
that couldn't win.
more so for the impact on the game.
And that is
classify
exactly
Donovan
what we're
McNabb
talking
with him
about
as
too.
well?
yes, I would classify Donovan McNabb with him as well. Also, actually, I would put McNabb ahead of Moon. I think McNabb had less to work with, if we're being honest. I think the Lovely Blue Oilers had a lot of very good teams.
Brian Westbrook and certain players
Before
on
that,
that team.
before that, the 2002 Eagles.
Fred X. Mitchell.
The 2002
James
Eagles.
Thrash, Todd.
Yeah.
I know about that team.
You
all
still
too
had
well.
Dawkins. You still had the defense, Corey Simmons. You
I'm
still had a
talking
very
purely
good
offense. But again,
You can't win with just
But
offense.
you had a middle of the road
But you
offense.
can only win with defense.
No, but I'm saying, if you look at Warren Moon's teams, the Oilers, not even talking about the Vikings or the Seahawks or the Chiefs, his teams with the Oilers, they were always considered to be next year's champions, especially with the Cowboys and the Sevens. Like, here they come. He can never do it, and he was the quarterback. He has to shoulder a big part of the responsibility.
He had a lot of interceptions, but he also he had 4,000 yards a couple times.
Big fan of Warren Moon, should be a Hall of Famer, but on this list, I'm not sure.
Yeah, more so, like I said, for the impact of the game. But if we're just talking NFL, I'm pretty sure this is going to be up for debate too. But the guy that sits atop of many of the passing records lists, Brett Favre, I put him. Well, I kind of
didn't
want to because Aaron Rodgers
Why not?
came in.
Why didn't you want to?
And
you can see Aaron Rodgers being a better quarterback. He's a better quarterback.
He came in and won the Super Bowl in his, I think, his second
the way they
season
play
as
the game.
starter.
If you're saying if you talk to Jay Gruden and you ask him who plays the game better, he's gonna say Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, here's my point though. Aaron Rodgers has played, I think, 5, maybe 6 full seasons. Let's call it 6 full seasons. That's 6. You isolate Brett Favre's career, his 6 best seasons. His 6 best seasons were the best quarterbacks ever played.
Except they also had a lot of interceptions,
I
more
know,
than
but
anybody that.
Not in those 6 seasons. He had 38-13, 41-14.
Yeah, when you chuck the ball up that much, you're gonna.
The guy was a
throw
monster,
interceptions.
and I'm a little biased, probably the biggest Favre fan in the world, but he represented the game the way he played, the childlike wonder he had when he played the game. I have no problem with him being on that list, especially if you go with numbers, wins. The guy's Super Bowl went to another. If he didn't catch a
300,
the
200, what is it, 297 consecutive starts, and then 320 something,
Iron
including
Man.
the playoffs. So
no problem with that.
With that, Brett Favre. If we're just talking NFL, Brett Favre definitely had a huge impact on the game.
Well, everyone, I agree with all your opinions, and you left out Bart Starr, which is it's sacrilege because the man, 4 Pro Bowls, not a lot, but 66 MVP, 5 NFL championships, 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think you guys missed one, but that's your opinion. Let's move on to running backs, more important. I'm going to give you my list because I want them to argue with me. My number 1 is Sweetness, Walter Payton from the Bears.
Sweetness.
Probably one of the in my opinion, the greatest running back of all time. That's debatable. Super Bowl 20, 9-time Pro Bowler. The number 34, synonymous with who? It's Walter Payton, and you can't go wrong with it. 21,803 all-purpose yards, 118 total touchdown yards. Played the game better than anyone you could see, and it's sad that we saw him go in the 90s with diseases, but he's a great man. A great player. Number 2, Barry Sanders.
Of course.
Revolutionized how to run. You could run side to side as good as you could up and down. LaShawn McCoy runs like him, and he gives him credit. He's the reason why he runs like that. Number 3, probably a lot of people's number 1 is Jim Brown. You can't really say anything about Jim Brown, but how he could get through anybody if he wanted to. and he played the game like better than anyone. My fourth is Marcus Allen from the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs, 6-time Pro Bowler, 12,243 all-purpose yards and 144 total touchdowns, just as a threat as a receiver as he was a running back. Really good side to side, just like Barry. But Nick?
Well, first of all, kudos to you for putting Marcus Allen on there. I mean, big Marcus Allen fan, and I think he deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore, at least teetering under that Mount Rushmore. It's hard to argue with yours. You said my number one. You said debatable. I don't see how it is. Walter Payton is the greatest football player of all time, also the greatest running back of all time. It comes down to the guy could throw, he could block, he could run, and he could receive. I mean, every facet of the game, he's better than everybody else. I mean, the guy would not die easy. He would not go down. His yards per carry, his yards, whatever you want to look at, he's got a Super Bowl. Any facet of the game you want to look at to measure a great player, he's got it down. He was the best running back ever, and many people's number one, like you said, Jim Brown, even admitted that he's the greatest running back he's ever seen. It's not a better endorsement than that. My number two running back is Jim Brown. I mean, the guy had 6 yards per carry. To me, yards per carry is a very important stat. And in the 9 seasons when he played, he was the NFL.
Like Emmitt Smith can get lost in how many yards he got to how many times they just gave him the ball in the later ends of his career. Because after Aikman goes, after Irvin goes, you kind of like, who are we going to throw to? Quincy Morgan? Who's he throwing to? He's going to hand the ball off to Emmitt Smith.
Jim Brown, they would assign 5 people on Jim Brown.
He's getting through all of them.
6 yards per carry. My third guy, Barry Sanders. Sound a little bit like yours so far. Barry Sanders.
For a reason.
Because it's impactful. It's impacting the game. I mean, the guy, quite frankly, I don't always agree with his running style. You're losing a negative yard here to gain 90 here. But the guy did it great. He had 1,000 yards every year he was in the league, which is an impressive feat. Nobody else has done it. Curtis Martin came close. But you have to have him on the Mount Rushmore for the way he played, the scat back position. Like you said, Shady McCoy, Danny Woodhead, those type of running backs who were like that owe their paychecks to Barry Sanders.
Don't ever relate Danny Woodhead to LaShawn McCoy. Ever
Why
again.
not? We'll talk about that later. Danny Woodhead's serviceable. We'll talk about that later, but okay. Earl Campbell is my last guy. Marcus Allen, he's close. He's close to putting him on there. Earl Campbell, again.
Texas Rose.
Tyler Rose.
Tyler Rose, whatever. He's a Rose.
He is a Rose. In a similar sense of Gale Sayers from 78 to 82. There was nobody better. He brought back the powerful running back that Jim Brown did in the 60s.
Have you ever seen his thighs up close?
But, with Earl Campbell he was also fast, man. To be that size and that fast, just barrel over people is so impressive. You only wish you can get a ring. Still a Hall of Famer. And to me, the way he ran, you have to put him on. Pure runner, other than Jim Brown. Pure runner, not receiving, none other facets. He might be the best running back who ever played.
Cam?
Good list. My top 3, this is the same as yours, pretty much.
So maybe it's the last face of Rushmore running backs is the most important.
Yeah, we're all geniuses. What can you do?
My first running back, Sweetness, Walter Payton. Why did they call him Sweetness? Because he was the greatest running back of all time. Simply put, the man was just a great runner, and it's like you said, it was just the same. We had to see him go that way. But my second running back is probably one of my favorites, Jim Brown, 6 yards a carry. I wish he played more than those 9 seasons he just played. But those 9 seasons, he was a great running back. All those 9 seasons he played, he was a great running back. Third, Barry Sanders, 1,000 yards every season. What more can you say about him?
It's hard to do.
Staying with a team that wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah,
he was the whole team.
Yeah, he was the whole team.
Yep.
And my fourth, I wrestled with this. It was either Eric Dickerson or Gale Sayers. But I put Eric Dickerson on my list because he still has the single season rushing yards. And Adrian Peters, he came close to breaking that record. I wish he did, but he just didn't. 2,105 yards, and it's a record that still stands to this day.
Yeah, he's a good player.
The Rams have a history of great running backs. Unfortunately, it stopped with Falk, but
yeah,
they're two great.
It's a good segue for you, Anthony.
Man, what would it be my first time on the show without causing a little controversy?
No.
Oh man, I feel a little scared to be up here now because I actually don't have everyone's number one on my Mount Rushmore.
Why not?
See? And as you can see, they're ready to gang up on me right now. But I have Jim Brown number 1. He kind of kind of fathered the running backs in. He ran for 12,312 career yards, 106 touchdowns, ran for 1,200 plus yards 3 times when they only played 12 games, which is amazing.
People forget that stat.
And he's got an NFL championship, too. He's got a championship.
2 seasons in particular where he averaged 127.3 yards per game in 58 and then 133.1 yards per game in 1963, which is you don't see
ridiculous.
Those
Never
type of
see
numbers.
it again,
ridiculous.
ever.
And rushing, I have Barry Sanders, of course, number 2 on my list. He basically carried, even though they had a serviceable quarterback. I can't think of his name right
Neither
now.
can I. Who was the serviceable quarterback?
But he carried the Detroit Lions to their only playoff win in couple decades. He ran for 1,000 yards in each of his 9 seasons.
Also 2,000 yards club.
2,000 yards, of course. 2,000 yards. He's a part of that club of only 7 running backs. He just did it all. Paved the way for people like we said, LaShawn McCoy,
and Danny
Chris
Woodhead.
Johnson, Danny Woodhead. What would the show be without Danny Woodhead? And Falk and running backs like that. I have Emmitt Smith, maybe based on the numbers, maybe that I mean, he's the career rushing leader.
That's just my opinion. Emmitt Smith. That's another thing we have to get through to everyone. These are the greatest running backs ever. So none of them, if they don't make the list, they're still one of the greatest running backs ever. Yeah. And this isn't to affect any of their legacies at all.
Well, a little bit. If you don't have Walter Payton on the list.
Yeah, but I know. The last one will be a shocker, so let me just get through Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith, he has 164 rushing touchdowns, and a lot of them maybe, short yard scampers, 2 yards, 1 yard. 11 straight 1,000 yards seasons, 2 20-plus rushing touchdown seasons. Yes, he had other stars around him like Irvin, Troy Aikman, obviously handing him the ball, but he obviously is a special player to be almost 2,000 yards up on the next closest runner, which is Walter Payton. And kind of like with my NFL, my Mount Rushmore for quarterbacks, my last one is kind of based on impact on the game. Shocker, don't everyone get all up in arms. I have actually Marshall Faulk as my last running back because of his impact on the game and what he did for the dual threat running back. With the greatest show on turf, you had Torrey Holt, you had Isaac Bruce, you had Kurt Warner, but he was the engine that made that go. He ran for 12,279 yards, 100 rushing touchdowns. He had 5 80-plus catch seasons as a running back, including going for over 1,000 yards in 1999 when they won the Super Bowl. 1999-2000 they won the Super Bowl.
Yes, correct,
Super Bowl, correct?
That's a dual.
And 6,875 career receiving yards along with 36 touchdowns. So his impact and what he's done for the Westbrooks, the McCoys, the Peters, the Chris Johnsons that can run and catch, he did a lot for running backs in that regard.
I agree. I think he picked up right where Marcus Allen left off and just did it a little more new, more different.
But who did it first, though? Walter
That's
Payton.
true.
I respect you, Anthony. I look forward to having you on the show.
I wish we could.
You sure? Am I allowed back?
You might not be. I respect Marshall Faulk a lot too, but I mean, not having Walter Payton is it's sacrilege.
I wish we could quarrel. I wish we could quarrel all day, guys. But I love to thank our guest, Anthony Willis, first-time guest. Hope to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Please come back. We'd love it. Cameron Watkins, as usual. Nick Lugaray. I'm CJ Ritchie. That's MCTV Extra Point. Next week, we're going to talk about something a little different. Best teams in NFL history. Who's your top 5? All right. See you later. Have a good one.